This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 613 with Ed Sullivan, recorded on June 27th, 2024. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a more water than we know what to do with Bellevue, Nebraska. Flood warnings are happening. It didn't seem that long ago. People thought we were going to dry out, but that's not the case. These things seem to cycle. And of course, we post the show in some pretty good weather tonight. I think we're all going to be set, but we post the show with some world-class show notes. And Ed already pre-wrote most of the show notes. Ed,
yeah, mine were not world-class, but you're going to convert them to world-class.
They were pretty world-class. I mean, they're better than most that I get from guests that come on here, right?
The links are the important things.
Yeah, no, it's super helpful. It's always helpful. We'll run them through some AI and clean them up and do some of those kinds of things. But we'll post it with some world-class show notes. We'll make them world-class.
Thank you.
There you go. Out at theaverageguy.tv. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers as well. For those of you who give every month, or you can jump in and join just 1 month, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. I don't care. I mean, I do. I appreciate you for doing that. But you can join the team, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. And a big thanks to Adam Hickman, my good friend from Gallup. Oh, used to be from Gallup. Last week,
I thought you were going to say used to be my good friend.
Yeah, that's true. No, he still is my good friend.
All right.
I had to tell him at the end of the show, I was like, man, I wish he used to live in Omaha. And I was like, we should have, I wish we'd have done more together when he was here. Big thanks to Adam for coming on last week. Ed Sullivan has been on the show before. Of course, you know Ed from the Cigar Authority and Sonic Cupcake. If you listen to the Ask the Podcast Coach show on Saturday mornings. Ed, always great to be around you. Welcome back.
Why, thank you. I'm happy to be back. You know, you and I were talking about it, and I let you know about this new purchase I made, which was the iMac Pro M4. And, you know, I've never had an iPad before.
Yeah.
For me, it always seemed like, well, what do I need it for? Couldn't come up with a use case for it because I always had a desktop and a laptop. So what is this thing going to do for you that they can't do? And, you know, I think what finally moved me over to it was traveling more, because my laptop is kind of a beast. It's, you know, a 16-inch MacBook Pro. And 16 I went to just because I do sometimes remote live streams in Cigar Authority. And boy, do I got to connect a lot of stuff to it. And I actually want the screen real estate. And that's the problem for me with a 13. I just feel too cramped for some of the stuff I'm doing. If I'm doing audio or video editing, it just feels cramped. So I like the 16 for that. But
well,
the downside,
the 16. It's so funny you say the size of it. And if you took your 16-inch now and compared it to some of the laptops that we had maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. Right.
No, it's almost monitor size of what we used to have, right?
Yeah.
And the resolution's much better.
For
so
sure.
You can get a lot of stuff on the screen. The real challenge is, you know, older person eyesight and how people want the stuff to be on the screen.
Right.
And,
yeah.
But, you know, the problem with it, and listen, compared to the old laptops too, it's relatively light compared to what some of those were.
Right.
But, you know, if I'm on vacation for a week or more, lugging it around seemed like a lot of dead weight to be bringing everywhere. So I thought, when I'm on vacation, primarily, what am I doing? I'm just mostly web surfing, email, that kind of thing. So I thought, well, why don't I try an iPad and take that with me when I travel? keep it a little bit lighter. And, I did do some traveling, so we'll talk about how that worked out. And, it's a little different now, too, when previously when I was working full time, I had to do work even when I was on vacation. That's just the nature of, if you're a VP of engineering, you don't really get full vacation time. So I needed the laptop. So, my only concern on the iPad was, what if I have a podcast production emergency? And am I going to be able to deal with that on the iPad? So I think I figured out a strategy for all of that. And, part of what got me going is I had some idle time, and I happened to watch, the Apple event where they launched the iPad. And those get you too excited. Like, well, I got to have that. I'm not even sure why I need to have that. I need that. So I went perusing, and boy, they're not giving these M4s away, Jim.
No, they're not, huh? They're not? No, they're not.
All right. Yeah. You get to play the guessing game. How much for the cheapest iPad Pro M4?
Well, okay, so as we think about the regular iPads, those are coming in or $400-500, right? So this
is the cheapest would be the 11-inch, not the 13. Right?
Yeah, right. So I was thinking maybe $700 or $800 to start with.
$999.
Okay, so $1,000.
We'll get you the 11-inch with 256 gigabytes of storage.
Yeah. Versus, am I right on a regular iPad? Are those in the $400 or $500 range?
I think maybe a little bit more for an M2.
All right.
Maybe $600 or something. But
you're in that. So you're in that price range, but you're basically, you're still talking about just the phone OS, right? That's on there, the Mac, the iPad, or whatever they call that OS. Yeah. So it's it's apps dependent. It's right. You're not talking about a file system OS like you would see with Mac or with Windows.
You're not, and that's part of the confusion of this product. Why are you taking the most powerful processor that you make and crippling it with I don't mean to be unkind, a rinky-dink operating system?
Mm-hmm. Well, or are you taking an efficient operating system and putting it on top of a pretty fast set of hardware to give it even more power? You could say it that way, right?
Yeah, a lot of the reviewers are saying, well, they really need to run Mac OS on these things, and Apple has zero interest in doing that. They've always made more of a distinction between their tablet and laptop world than I think Microsoft has, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, Apple's looking at, okay, the iPad is a touch device. The laptop is never going to be a touch device.
Right.
And, somebody was asking a marketing guy at Apple, and it's pretty simple for them. 80% of the laptop owners also own an iPad. So why are they going to make something that means you only got to buy it once?
Right.
Right. If all of a sudden everything is in the iPad, then what the heck are you getting a laptop for? So I think they really view them as very distinct devices.
Mm-hmm.
With the iPad being a touch-first device, and obviously their laptops have no touch interface.
Right. Well, they tried. Remember when they tried?
Oh,
yeah. Remember when they had the bar up on the top?
Oh yeah. But they moved away from that. Well, Jim, I know you're a high-end guy. What's the most expensive?
Don't mock me on my own show, Ed Sullivan.
What do you think for the most expensive iPad M4.
Yeah, certainly couldn't be any more than $2,000 for the most expensive one. Right. These are iPads that we're talking about, right?
I understand that. It still comes in at $3,077.
Holy buckets.
Well, that's getting you everything. That's getting you 2 terabytes. You're getting the Nano-texture glass, Wi-Fi, and cellular. You get the Pencil Pro with that, Jim.
Yeah.
And the Magic Keyboard. What more could you ask for?
$3,000 phone. That's right. It's a phablet. Right. Listen, no. It is powerful, and I think.
Yep.
I have to be thinking. I mean, it's a lot of storage, a lot of space. You're thinking about somebody who. Listen, I could probably get away with this instead of a laptop, because I do mostly email. I do web-based things, right? I can run. By the way, are you running, is the camera coming off of the iPad Pro or is it coming off of your MacBook?
What, the camera I'm on is the MacBook.
You're on the MacBook right now, not the iPad Pro. So for folks who are like looking, your video stuttering every once in a while. That's not the new iPad Pro, thank God, that we're on. Do you think we could have done this on the iPad Pro? There's a StreamYard, I think, has an app.
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's become easier to use audio interfaces since they went to USB-C.
Mm-hmm.
So I was playing around earlier with, I'm using a Motu M2 right now. And I was using that earlier with the iPad just to play around with it. So I think we could do the exact same thing on there.
Yeah.
And I should be able to run it through the browser on there as well, I would think.
Yeah. I think StreamYard has an app for the phone. I think. I'd have to go back and look. But that's always the concern. You're, as a podcaster, as a podcast producer, you're doing video editing. That certainly that processor is up to the task of that. But it requires all those apps, right? You're going to need some Adobe stuff, to be able to do that. Would you be comfortable doing that on the iPad versus doing it on the MacBook?
I think so, except you sort of have to change your tool set, which is is a barrier to entry for me. But you could certainly use, they just came out with the new version of Final Cut Pro for the iPad. And then they've got Logic Pro for the iPad, for the audio editing side. iPad, I was playing with some of their new functionality. You could really use the new iPad as a mobile video solution. They just came out with, I think it was just last week, so I haven't had a chance to play with it that much, but there's an app now for iPhones and iPads called, I think it's Final Cut Camera. So what you can do essentially is bring up Final Cut Pro on the iPad, run the camera app on any iPhone or iPad, and then wirelessly connect that to Final Cut Pro. Up to 4 cameras. And all the way to resolution, right? Uncompressed video. I think that'll become a bottleneck with your network potentially if you're trying to take 4 streams of uncompressed video. That's a lot of data.
Yeah, you better be near your devices for that, right?
But you can certainly go 4K with the cameras. Very easy setup, and then you can record. The other extension they made to it is you can put projects on an external device now. Right, so you don't have to worry so much about what the storage capacity on the iPad Pro is. You could, put an SSD, connect an SSD to it, and record the project to the SSD. You'd be fine with that. And then they've got really pretty good multicam editing that they've built into that. You can go through and decide, for example, I want the audio from this device. And, you know, it records audio from all of them, probably mostly for syncing the multicam. Right, so that it has a decent way to sync all of that. But then you can click a button, just say use the audio from this device. So if I were to do it, I would use an audio interface connected to the iPad. Then you could use, whatever microphones you want, just the way you would, and record it. When you're all done, say, okay, well, let's just use the audio from the iPad. Which is, pristine audio from the audio interface. So I think you can easily do your podcast production and video production from this device now.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a different workflow, right? I mean, it's just kind of
different apps and
different apps, different workflow.
Right. So for me, when I'm doing audio editing, I'm mostly a Hindenburg Pro user. I just find it's the most sensible thing when you're really editing spoken word. You really don't need a lot of the bells and whistles. So that is not available as an iPad app.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what I decided when I'm traveling, there's actually a very good iPad app called Jump Desktop. And that's a remote desktop app. So what I've done when I was actually away in Canada last week is just connect to my my iMac Pro at home and then do all the audio stuff that I need to do on that device at home through the iPad with the remote desktop. So for me, there's just a couple edge cases where I need applications that are not available on the iPad.
Yeah.
But, they're all on my home computer, so if I can get there, I can get the work done. So I think for me, it's usable for my purpose, but man, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't spend the $3,000, but
right. What did you get, Ed? What was your configuration?
So I ended up with the 13-inch. I went 1 terabyte, although I probably could have got away with 512 gigabyte. But
you always regret that. You always regret it. It's probably good. You're always like, 4 years or 3 years into the product life cycle, I'm always wishing I'd bought more storage. So I think you never go wrong by getting a little bit more than you need.
Well, and Apple almost forced it a little bit the way they configured these, just because if you buy 256 gig or 512 gig, automatically that comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM.
Okay.
If you buy the 1 terabyte of storage, you get 16 gigabytes of RAM. And I thought, well, all right, I kind of want the RAM as much as I want the storage, so let's do that. And the other thing I cared about was Nano-texture glass. And part of that is, listen, the displays on these are beautiful, but the glare is brutal.
Yeah.
And the Nano-texture is actually pretty usable in sunlight even. You get you can still see what the heck is going on with it.
Yeah.
And it's, the displays on these are gorgeous, right? It's OLED displays, but then they use this double layer OLED. So the brightness of it is much brighter than previous iPads. Some people don't like the Nano-texture because, you do lose some of the crispness, and then they'll say, well, the blacks aren't as black. Well, I don't know. It's still the nicest looking display I own. And so, maybe those distinctions are lost on me. It looks pretty good to me. But, getting the 13-inch 1 terabyte Nano-texture with the Magic Keyboard still sets you back $2,348.
Yeah. A little bit change.
A little bit of change. You could get a
Yeah.
really nice laptop for that money.
Yeah. I mean, you can get a comparable MacBook for that
Yeah.
kind of money, right? At this point. Now it's still an M2, right? At this point, the M3 went only to the
Right. I think
something else.
from what I understand, M3 was sort of short-lived because they were having yield problems, the M3 chip. And really, if you remember when it came out, it was just sort of weird. They weren't comparing the performance of the M3 to the M2. They were comparing it to the M1 because it really didn't give you much beyond the M2.
Yeah.
The M4 certainly kicks it up, and you know, for only $2,348, Jim, I got the most powerful YouTube and Netflix watching machine ever made, ever.
Well, that's probably true. You're probably that's probably
So
some
I
truth
can
to
probably watch the same video in half the time you can, Jim, just because of the power of the machine.
Well, and you'd be smarter than me when you were done with it. Well, okay, but that being said, I mean, yes, it can do those things, but I'm kind of thinking about, you know, and I don't know if these guys exist anymore, but the road warriors who are out doing presentations, they're showing things, they're bringing stuff up. I mean, it's still, from that standpoint, it could still be a pretty good little productivity machine, especially from a display standpoint, to be able to do a lot of those, you know, a lot of those kinds of things that need to be done on the road, lighter. I mean, again, I'm getting to this point now where some of my apps, like I want to run the Blue Eddy app that for my battery only on an iPhone or Android, right? Android tablet. I want to run the Birdfy, I think is what Aaron called it. Birdfy only on the iPhone. I can't or Android. I got a tablet right here, but you know, it's those kinds of things. You're like, well, I mean, yeah, I could go Mac laptop if I wanted to, or I could carry around Windows, but it's not there. I think we're getting to a point where some of those things are just because we're getting so phone centric on both Android and iPhone, right? Brian says in chat, he says, I think the basic iPad works for 90% of people, but I think the Air is a sweet spot. You might find one model year old for a decent price. The M1 still holds up, right? From that standpoint.
I think he's low with 90%. I'd say 95% of the people. For me, I wouldn't have even considered it, except that I'm writing it off as a business expense. So, you know, it just, in the end, I could have done everything I need to with, you know, an M2 iPad Pro or iPad Air. The Air is a fine machine.
Yeah.
So what would I lose? I'd lose my textured glass. I'd lose 2 M's since it's only an M2. And, you know, I think the display is not quite as good, but it's still a very nice display.
Yeah.
You know, I think they finally fixed the camera positioning on this one. Right.
So now it's in landscape?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because that was always an oddity of the other ones, you know. It was down the end there. So I think it's helpful to have
it does make sense to have it portrait. I mean, this world of landscape that we've created, you and I are both in it now.
Right.
But it would actually make more sense. I mean, I can kind of force us into it like this. Right. And this actually, and I used to podcast this way at Gallup, but the landscape mode it's funny how we become kind of landscape biased in some ways when portrait is really the right way to be doing this, not landscape, right?
I think you're right. I mean, you really don't need a wide shot like this.
No. I got
plenty of space on either side of me.
Yeah. And this actually looks, I think it looks more professional. I think it looks more, but yet, you know, I default to this look here. Again, Podcast listeners, very, very sorry. We're switching between landscape and portrait. Apologize for that. If you can head over to the channel. I think it's youtube.com/theaverageguy.tv if you want to see the live version of this. You can, but yeah, so it's funny how we say they fixed it, but I actually think they did that intentionally. No, I think they did it intentionally in the days, and they just could not drive usage over to. I mean, the iPhone still does it, right? I mean, so
well, and part of it is that the usage of the iPad changed a bit, right? If you think about, well, if I'm really using it just as a tablet, wouldn't you rather hold it vertically, if you're on a FaceTime versus holding it horizontally? It's really when you add the keyboard that you're going to a horizontal orientation. But if you're using it just as a tablet, it makes more sense to hold it like a portrait mode device.
Yeah, and actually in productivity modes, when you're writing, it makes more sense for it to be in portrait and have the page it's not nobody turns the page landscape and then starts writing on it, right? We all take notes in portrait. And it's just funny how, I have a monitor, one of my monitors down here is set up in portrait. Yeah. And I've had folks say it's the most natural way to interact with documents, spreadsheets, writing, some of those things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jim. I don't think you're going to change that now, though.
No, I'm not in a position to change it, but it's funny how, you said, well, they fixed it, got it to landscape, and that makes sense from where we are today, but it actually, it kind of should be portrait. Brian says out in chat, he says, as a consumption device, I find it great, talking about the iPad. As a productivity device, I definitely reach for a computer whenever possible. I think, Ed, that we're in this changeover period where we're going to be where productivity apps are probably going to get better for the iPhone and Android.
Right.
Although Android's so weird. Nobody talks about that OS. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there's plenty of people that do, but it gets so little, conversation, but definitely iPhone, right? So the app environment, I think we're going to get more of that, or this may push developers more in that way as we get more power on those devices to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I wonder if the old school, Tony had mentioned, earlier about, you can't access a file system. I wonder if we're moving to a day when the file system is irrelevant, when you're like, why do you need access to the file system? If there's ways to get I think tonight I was making this outline, this here on the live page, this outline, and I was changing 613 down here to 612, and I was changing it in Canva. Right now, I don't go into Canva and open a file, right? I just go to the website and open up the last instance of it. And it's only the silliness of because I use Windows, having to download that thing and then bring it back in to StreamYard, where if that was all integrated, I'd change it in Canva and it would just import it into Stream, right? So maybe those days are numbered.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely converging somewhat, right? With people, I should be able to run my iPhone apps on my desktop. And then you start to look at, if you go the route of all productivity apps, then you get into this sort of, okay, but I want to see more than one thing at a time, right? So now windowing starts to become a thing. And since you don't have I didn't even know it existed till I got an iPad, this thing they call Stage Manager, which is a very clunky way to do some windowing of apps on the iPad. Essentially, you create a stage and you can put up to 4 apps on that stage. And listen, it can be kind of fun. You can resize the apps, and So for stuff that I normally run on the iPhone, I might have a stage with 3 different apps in it that are all sized to look like they're running on an iPhone, right? So it's like a side by side 3 iPhone apps. And it's actually, well, listen, they got enough power. It's pretty efficient. It just feels clunky to me. And, even the keyboard thing is, it's nice to have a keyboard, but then I don't know if you've seen it when you're using the Magic Keyboard. You don't really get a mouse pointer. You get kind of a little circle that represents a touch area. So some of the things, for whatever reason, I'll go click on it, and it doesn't seem to work unless I double click it, even though it's just a link. Whereas if I go touch the screen, then it's fine. So, there's little idiosyncrasies that you get used to it in a hurry, but it's not the same experience as working on a laptop at all.
Right. Well, and we're probably in this cutover era, right? Or this changeover where you have a mixture of these different OSs that, we're Windows 11 on the Microsoft side. We've got a Mac OS that we're running, whatever version. I don't even pay attention to it. It just tells me to update it. I couldn't tell you the name of it.
I've lost track of where they're at. I have to go about this Mac to see that it's now Sonoma.
Okay, so didn't know. And to be honest with you, I mean, if I didn't listen to a Windows podcast, I probably wouldn't know that much about the Windows OS either. Now I use it. I've got 2 PCs on the Insider program. I just had my Surface just crashed and burned on the Insider program, and I had to reinstall Windows 11 from scratch, which got me out of the Insider program and a bona fide version of Windows 11, which is kind of interesting to be on that. It's a nice little hack to get in there. Shouldn't be running that Surface Pro 3 that I have should not be running Windows 11, but it's running it just fine. And so if I didn't listen to a Windows podcast, I wouldn't know, and I probably wouldn't care either. But then, like I mentioned, we've got this iPhone OS, which is super popular, and Android, which can do some things. Yeah. And you're like, okay, so we have this weird productivity time where there's these 4 of these. And you know what? Maybe it's okay that we do some things on our phones that are made for this size. And then when we need to do heavy lifting, we go to something else that needs a little bit. Maybe that's okay. Maybe it doesn't maybe there doesn't have to be one thing to do it all.
So it's okay that I have a desktop, a laptop, an iPad, an iPhone, and an Apple Watch. And
they all have
to stop to think about, wait a minute, where do I do that one?
Well, but I think about, the things the watch does really well is track stuff in us.
Yeah.
And what my phone could do that, but it doesn't do it very accurately.
No.
Then
let's be honest. How often do you open apps on your watch?
Never. No. Well, the workout one. And I'll be honest with you, talking on it is kind of clunky. Yes, you can do it, but if you have any conversation that's longer than 3 or 4 minutes, I find myself holding my arm up with my other arm. It's kind of like that weird thing we've gotten into. Remember when we used to talk on our phones and we would put it up to our ear and we'd hold phones that way? And now you see people holding it out in front of
yelling at their
face.
phones.
Right. Yeah. This is the new way of talking on phones. You just put it out. Everybody's, so, you kind of wonder then, is there a spot? I am seeing more and more. You didn't even mention what's the ear versions? AirPods.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. I don't have those.
Yeah, but those could have some
why
things
I need them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm seeing more and more people just wearing them regularly, and then
They walk around all day with them. Yeah.
yeah. Oh. So it's there. So there. I guess what I'm saying is there's some element, Ed, of right tool for the right job, and I wonder sometimes in technology if because these things are expensive, but so are tools. Like, have you bought a really good table saw, or have you bought name any of those kinds of tools? I mean, they're pretty expensive too. Maybe they're not $2,300 expensive, but then again, they don't have the technology that's in them. But I'm just kind of wondering, maybe we should resist the urge a little bit to say one thing to rule them all. I've been watching a lot of Lord of the Rings lately. Instead of saying right tool for the right job.
Listen, Apple's resisting it. If you can sell me 4 things, why do you want to sell me just one?
Sure. No, right. I mean, I don't want to be the jackass that takes the iPad and holds it up. I mean, in the early days of the, no, I don't want to be that guy. I want my phone.
Those giant iPhones are almost an iPad.
Yeah.
Those are
the phablets
phones.
in between. Yeah. Well, let's talk about real world usage. You actually got an opportunity. You bought this for a trip that didn't turn out, but you went somewhere else instead.
I went somewhere else. Well, let's backtrack for a second and talk about what you got in the package and all the other crap you need to buy.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Go.
So, for my $2,300 some odd dollars, well, it was interesting because I ordered this during the event, right? And somehow it took a month for them to deliver the actual iPad. I got the keyboard the next week, so I got to, pretend I was typing or something for about 3 weeks. But in the package itself, man, they seem to be almost cheaping out. In the package you get a 20-watt charger. I mean, couldn't they give you a little bit more than that? But it's 20 watts. And the thing that horrified me, just because it's Apple, I got, a nice white 20-watt charger and a black USB cable. It's like, Apple, this is not right.
That is weird. That is weird. They're usually really particular about that.
It didn't look right to me.
Okay.
Because I got the Nano-texture screen, I got the magic cleaning cloth.
Oh, does it talk to you?
Well, according to Apple, this is the only thing you can use to clean this screen.
Man.
Nothing else on earth, I don't think. Just this magic cloth. And I mean, I'm trying to keep careful track of it because if you need a new magic cloth, it's $20.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not a regular cloth.
So this microfiber.
It looks a lot like that. But
that I used to clean my glasses.
Well, keep that away from my Nano-texture because that is not going to work. So, yeah, I mean, it's the standard thing. Listen, I still like wired headphones. Mm-hmm. I'm not a Bluetooth guy.
Right.
So the first thing you do is say, well, there's no place to plug those into this thing. I got to go buy the Apple thing. So, I had to order up a USB-C headphone adapter. Although they seem to have come down in price. I think even the Apple one is $9 or something. So it's not outrageous, but somehow they're using the thinnest cable I've ever seen on that thing these days.
It's almost like if you blew on it, it would come apart, right?
Well, and it's one of those things where it's very easy to lose and misplace. So I'm glad they're cheap.
Yeah. It's got that wispy. This is actually a little stronger.
That is way. Yeah.
I'm trying. Oh, hey, wait a minute. I have one of those. Hold on. This is more of what you're talking about. right there, right? This is the headphone. this is the lightning to, this is kind of that adapter, right? That
right.
like that. Now you have USB-C on that, on your.
Well, and and here's the problem, right? Reach into your backpack and pull one out, and then try to plug it in and realize, oh no, that's the one for my phone.
Oh yeah,
that's not the one.
Yeah.
Although I guess if I had a modern iPhone, then a USB-C would work for both. But
because it does fit. This is a USB-C adapter, right? This is the VGA adapter, or the I'm sorry, HDMI for your iPhone, and this is USB-C. This is Lightning. It will go in.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work for you. But the converse isn't true. If I pull the USB-C one out, it's not going into my iPhone.
Yeah.
It's not. And then I thought, okay, well, I've got the sort of case protection of having the Magic Keyboard. It's basically a folio case as well, but I still wanted a tablet sleeve. So I grabbed one of those, that's more size to the tablet. But I just thought, they sold me a device that says it will charge up to 60 watts and gave me a 20-watt charger to with the device.
That does seem like a little. There's your we'll show some of these. I'll bring some of these up. That's the sleeve that you brought.
Yeah, nice little case, padded inside. And part of it is I was a little concerned too about, I don't think anyone asked Apple to make the thinnest device they've ever made. So I was a little concerned about just sticking that right into the laptop bag. So I thought a little more protection wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, especially when you're traveling.
Yep. So I bought a 65-watt USB-C charger, and that's a good thing to have anyway, because listen, that'll do a fine job on the laptop as well.
Yep. Yeah, and this would charge I have a Lenovo laptop that I think has a 43-watt charger that came with it. So I could do the laptop and have something else going at the same time. I think this is a nice charger to have. It's a great travel charger. The plug folds down into the body of it, so it's a very thin device. Unlike a lot of the Apple ones are kind of bulky. They go for this more cube thing. Yeah.
That I find that's easier to just slide into a pocket in the backpack.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, what you get is on the actual iPad, one USB-C port, and that's it. So I decided, okay, I may want to use an external monitor with it at times. I may want to connect power to it as well as an audio interface. So I thought, well, I better get a USB-C hub. I found a nice one. Yeah, that's the one I ended up with. Go to the other one for a minute. Okay. I think I gave you 2 links for them. Yeah. See, this one looked nice, right? It just plugs right into the side of the iPad. It's not clear from the picture there, but it has a little bit of a lip on it on one side, right? And I think that's just because when you, I think you can see it a little bit. It overlaps, right? I think their theory was that if this is hanging off the side with just the USB-C, it'd be pretty easy to bend that connector. If you were to move it. The problem I had was with that little lip, it meant that I could not plug it in in the Magic Keyboard case.
Okay.
So the only use case I could find for it is if you're using it as a standalone tablet. And then why would you want to be plugging wires into it when you're holding the thing? and obviously I thought, okay, I guess theoretically it's USB-C. I can flip it upside down, but it seemed pretty clear that it was going to scratch the glass if you use it in that orientation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even if you were able to do it, then you couldn't close the folio case, right? Because it would be sitting there. So I abandoned that one. I gave that to Whole Foods for a refund. And ended up getting the other one that has a wire on it. But that's okay, not quite as slick, but I can plug it in when I have it in the Magic Keyboard.
Right.
And it's got what you need in it. It's even got the headphone jack in there as well, and the HDMI. It's got plenty of stuff there. And SD card readers are in there. They crammed a lot into there.
They did. It's amazing what we can get in the hub now.
It really is.
Yeah, it's amazing. Brian says, too bad about the Anchor one. Usually they make great accessories, and I think they do. Right?
They do. Yeah. And I don't know. I just wasn't sure what their use case was for it. It sure wasn't usable by me. I'm sure it functioned well once you got it plugged in.
Yeah. Well, there was, on the Surface side of things, there was a time when they wanted to get all of that on the side of the Surface. Now, it had its own kickstand. It had its own keyboard that snapped in on the bottom. And so you had all that room. And it looked slick to have it, one attachment right to the side. Yeah. But for all the reasons you just said, actually, it doesn't really fit any of the equipment.
No, and then you're going to have to pull it off when you go to put it away anyway. So, I'm just as happy with this. And, realistically, this is another edge case. It's got to be over 90% of the iPad users don't plug anything into it except a charging cable.
Right. Yeah.
They're not looking to read SD cards, but for me, if I had, that DJI Osmo camera and I was away shooting footage, it'd be much simpler to just pull the SD card out of there, plug it into the iPad, bring it into Final Cut Pro, and you can do whatever you want with it there. So
right.
I think it makes some sense for me, but I loaded all this technology into my bag and took it up to Canada.
Did they let it cross the border, or they're like, no, you can't bring in this fancy equipment?
They had
let you
no questions about it. They figured, oh well, if this guy's got an M4, he's got money and he'll spend while he's here in Canada.
Must be.
They were happy with it.
What'd you find yourself using it mostly for then?
As a very powerful YouTube and Netflix viewing machine. I think the other frustration I have is not on Apple. This is on web developers. Some sites you go to really force you to download their app.
Yeah.
Well, I got a perfectly good browser here. I don't want your app. And they detect that you're on a mobile device and insist that you download their app. And I have no interest in their app. There are certain things that apps are good for, but not everything needs to be an app. But, other than that, listen, it's email. And I'm a Gmail user. The Google stuff is actually decent on the iPad.
Yeah.
So, I use it for my Gmail, my web browsing, and I don't know. Is there much more to life than that, Jim?
Well, I mean, did you try the remote desktop connection?
I did. It works great. It's actually very responsive. The one thing I will say is that, overall, it gets pretty small. right? By by the time it's display screen, you know, my 27-inch iMac Pro screen coming down to this size screen, so all the
Oh yeah, yeah.
it
It's a
looks small.
resolution problem at that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's all the text and everything is very clear, but it's going to be tiny.
Could
Oh,
you could you plug that into a big screen TV and use the TV? I mean,
yeah.
use it that way. It makes the screen bigger, and then do whatever you need to do. Can would a mouse wouldn't even would a mouse work on that thing once you were emulating the desktop?
Yeah, it works perfectly fine. So
Okay.
I can use the touchpad,
Yeah.
and it works seamlessly the same way that my MacBook Pro would work.
Uh huh.
And the Magic Keyboard actually, in this version, they did add a function key row, which on the Mac can be very helpful just because they already have assigned functions,
Right.
you know, like display brightness and volume adjustment and that sort of thing. But just for kicks, when I was in Canada, although it wasn't a critical situation, I did do one of the podcasts that I edit and produce for them. I did it on the iMac Pro using remote desktop, so I was really doing it on my machine at home. Quite doable. I wouldn't call it a pleasant experience, but you know, for urgency cases, I can do whatever I need on my desktop.
Would it make more sense to remote into your laptop on that as opposed to the desktop to from a screen resolution standpoint? Would that make more
You know,
sense?
it might work a little better, but I'm best set up for production
Okay.
on my desktop. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to give that a try though, Jim,
Yeah.
because
No, just
the laptop's not an always on device for me either, though. Is it?
yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I no, just thinking from a though, if you were on a trip and you knew you were going to be gone, and maybe you turn the laptop on and
Hmm.
leave it on while leave it on while you're traveling, and then you remote into that as opposed to remoting it. I mean, say you did. I mean, the kids these days, they do everything on their laptops,
Oh yeah.
and so like desktop. What is that? They don't. I mean, now creatives, maybe that's different in the creative space because they know the power that's there, but. These laptops are getting so powerful. Just kind of wondering, maybe they'd be a little bit better
Well,
of an experience to come in on the laptop.
I'm going to try it, Jim, and I'm going to report back to you.
All right, sounds good.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, my iMac Pro. That's older. I got that in 2017, but it's, you know, a 3 gigahertz 10 core Xeon processor.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's pretty powerful. It's still pretty powerful.
64 gigabytes of memory.
Right, right. Yeah,
But I'll tell you what, versus my MacBook Pro, if I'm rendering a video, the MacBook will do it about twice as fast
yeah,
as
yeah,
a beast of a desktop, you
yeah.
know.
Well, there's big jumps. I mean, they made a big jump between those two. You
Yep.
think 2017, that's,
It's a while ago.
it's a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah. And
mean,
the M series chips have come out since then, right?
if you still got a very usable 7-year-old desktop, you're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, right on.
you know, I don't think it'll be long before Apple nudges me off of there. I don't know when they'll decide they're not interested in supporting Intel machines anymore.
Right.
It'll come.
Well, it's a beautiful monitor, right? I mean,
It's gorgeous.
uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
really, I mean,
Yeah.
as a standalone self-contained system, those iMac Pros are very, very good.
Yeah. Can you use that as an external monitor? Could you
I,
use the MacBook and put
I
the
don't know
screen
if
on?
it'll work as an external
Okay.
monitor.
Well,
I don't think it has a gazinta. That's
yeah,
technical. A
right.
gazinta and a gazota,
Right. Yeah, it goes in.
which
Well,
is a shame because it is a spectacular monitor.
yeah. Well, and you're now in a weird world where you bought that app, right? To that's on the iPad, the Jump
Right.
desktop. But
Yeah.
that Jump desktop, that doesn't work on your laptop, right? That's a
Correct.
right.
It's an app.
Right. So you bought that. It's not like you can now load that on your laptop to also do the same thing. And
No,
I,
which
listen,
I
I
would
know
love
Mac.
to.
I know they have remote control software, though, right? I mean,
Yeah, this
right.
this was just I found it very well done, really straightforward to get it set up. And
Yeah.
as an app, it wasn't crazy. It was 14.99
Yeah.
one time purchase.
Right.
You know, you you load the program onto the desktop computer and just kind of worked. You know, a little bit of playing around to get the audio pass through, which I obviously needed to do
Yeah.
audio editing on
Right.
the
Right.
iPad.
Yeah.
I believe you can set up some file sharing, although that's not what I'm necessarily interested in doing. If I have to go to the desktop, I'll just do the work there and send it from there to
Right.
or upload it wherever. There's no point in doing it from the iPad. But no, that worked out fine, really. So
Brian says there's a dongle that you can buy. Of course, there's a dongle you can buy. It's probably $1,000. Called a Luna that
whoa.
allows. He thinks that allows you to use the iMac as an external monitor.
All right. Well, once they kill off my support on iOS, I guess it's
Listen,
going to be a very expensive monitor.
that monitor is going to last forever. I mean, it's
Oh
a
yeah,
beautiful monitor.
yeah.
It's that's one of the things I always loved on the Apple side, even when I was a non-Apple guy. Their monitors were amazing. Yeah, of course, I have a monitor problem, so I love their monitors, and I just hate to see a monitor like that go to the
It,
landfill. It's so beautiful.
no, it's a thing of beauty, and
Yeah,
normally in this day and age, you'd think 27-inch. That's not much, but it really the resolution on it is great.
is it a
Yep,
5K?
it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
And it's a 2017 5K. So, I mean,
Yep.
we think like 4K, 8K. We're talking 8K at this point. You're like, yeah, but like 2017, there wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of that out there.
No, no, it was particularly spectacular in
Yeah,
2017.
yeah, yeah. No, it was super good, super good.
But
Do you think? Okay, so you drove to Canada. When you fly, next time you fly,
yeah.
will it be? Is that going to be something you're going to pull out and use the whole time on the flight to watch movies or that kind of
Oh,
stuff? Is this where this goes?
absolutely. I think it does give you more flexibility for that, when if you're in a cramped seat with somebody putting their seat back, sometimes if you've got a laptop, you can't get the right angle on it to see it. At least, with the iPad, well, pop it out of the keyboard and just hold it and watch
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah.
Put it on your tray table. So I think it gives you more flexibility in that regard. So I know it,
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah. Do you are you going to use it during the week at all? Is this going to stay in the will this stay in the sleeve until the next vacation? How's that going to work?
So I'm testing that out for when I go to work in the studio in
Okay.
Salem. Normally if I'm live streaming the show, I have my laptop next to me just to check the streams, on a different computer, make sure everything is okay. And no reason I couldn't just bring the smaller computer to do that.
Right.
You know, it free up some more space for me on the desk too. You know, having the 13 versus the 16-inch there.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a nicer display than my 16-inch.
Yeah. Yeah. So the laptop you had before, you sold that to my daughter. She uses it all the time. What size was that?
That was a 13. That was
okay. So
that was the first M1 13-inch MacBook Air.
Yeah.
And listen, that's still a very good and viable machine.
Yeah. She uses the heck out of it. She's on it all the time, Ed. Well, she's already been on it more than you ever were on it. I mean, she's on it all the time. And it's, you know, she takes it everywhere, and it's been a good little laptop for her.
And a buddy of mine was telling me just this morning, yesterday, he saw, you know, some alert come in. Somebody was selling that M1 MacBook Air for $399.
Oh, wow.
He said, I was going to buy it, except I don't need one. And then when I went back 2 hours later, they were gone. I said, I'd expect they would be at that price.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes it makes a good little travel device as well. I mean, I think that's another, I mean, I could use it at work for productivity. I'd put it on a big monitor. Right.
No, but listen, I could have used that for my live event. Just wanted more screen real estate. You know, because when you got OBS and all the other stuff you got to have, you really need two monitors to work effectively for producing that show. And one little one's not good. I need big.
Yeah.
You know that, Jim. You need two monitors.
You absolutely. that is your God-given right to have as much monitor space as possible. Right. I tell people all the time that, and they're like, "Yeah, but you have too much." Well, no, it's not possible. It's not. I'm trying to find spots for 2 or 3 more down here.
Although you're a monitor man, so maybe you can help me with this.
Yeah.
Let me know if this is a problem with me. Listen, these giant curved monitor things.
Yeah.
For the way I work, I don't like it. I always want 2 monitors. And people will say, "Oh, you just have 2 on the same screen." Well, that's not how I work.
No.
Like, I need the physical divide for the activities.
Yes. Yes.
That must just be a mindset thing, right?
You know, it's okay. So here in the studio setup, I've got a 37-inch curved and then I've got a 27-inch curved gaming monitor, Windows on one, Mac on the other.
Right.
Using Synergy to go in between them, 1 keyboard, 1 mouse. Works great. But they're physically different OSs, right? Mm-hmm. There are moments here where these widescreens, you don't get. Sometimes these browsers are optimized for 1080 or for 4K and not for the smaller ones. And there are moments when you do split them on the screen where the browsers get a little bit smaller. Yeah, you could overlap them and flip-flop between the two. On the work side, I definitely have, I've got 2 monitors. Actually, I have 3, but one's above it. But 2 side by side, and those are the workflow. I put a spreadsheet up on one side, and I put the web stuff I need to go to look these people up on the other. And I do like the physical divide down the middle.
See, for me, the iMac Pro monitor is where I'm working, and the secondary monitor is for nonsense. So maybe I'm playing a YouTube video on the other monitor while I'm working on the iMac Pro. And I don't want that distraction on the monitor that I'm working on.
Yeah, you almost need it far enough away from even
there
from
is
an
actually
eye.
a dividing space between those two.
Your eye gets stopped. It's like a fence. Tony says he uses Share Mouse to go between Windows and Mac. And Tony, I may need to go to that at some point. Synergy's making some waves that they may go out of business and not do any more updates or some of those kinds. I have to go. I'll have to look into it. But Yeah, Ed,
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
kind of with you. I do like physically two different. Now, when I'm doing this
mhm,
show, I've got everything jammed together here. So for podcasting, I like them all close together. I like the multiple
yeah,
things, because I have us here, I've got the chat room in the middle, and then I've got the show notes all the way to the
yeah,
right, and it keeps them kind of close, for
yeah.
me.
No, I think it makes sense. Yeah, and for me on the iMac Pro, I just run Parallels when I need Windows things,
Yeah, yeah,
which for me is rare, but our computer in the studio is Windows 11.
yeah,
So occasionally I want to try something at home, so I just fire up Parallels for that. And
yeah.
that works
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'll be honest. I mean, I wouldn't. I would not want to run Parallels on the Mac. I kind of like it. I like the Mac, and I like the PC, the PC.
It really doesn't hurt anything, Jim.
No, I know, but I just don't
Yeah.
want to take one down to bring another one up. I like them all on at the same time.
And since I ordered it with 64 gigabytes of memory, I can
Yeah.
afford a little bit for
Oh, for
Windows.
sure. Yeah, for sure. No,
You know,
that's
you give Windows 16, you still got 48 for the
yeah,
Mac. You're
right on.
fine.
No, right on.
Yeah.
No, that absolutely works out. It's just funny how those different workflows work differently
Yeah.
for, even we were joking about this, I think, in the pre-show, that even I run the My Radar weather app sometimes in
Right.
portrait, and then I sometimes run it in landscape because I want, like, there's certain things, if I'm like in portrait, the forecast is easier to see, and in landscape, the way the weather travels across is easier to see. And so,
Oh, your radar map is got to be
yeah,
landscape. Yeah.
right, right, yeah, you go like, I want more width as opposed to height, but the forecast looks better. Anyways, we listen, we all have our productivity hacks, right? And for me, I like the screen real estate. Okay, you told me at the very beginning of the show, Ed, you're going to tell me what I need to buy next.
Yeah. I
Are
don't
we
think
there? Are you ready?
Yeah, I don't think you're an iPad guy, Jim.
Okay. All right.
You just don't strike me as that kind of guy. So I know you've been holding off, and it really looks like coming up, Apple's going to start to push that M4 to their other devices. So I think the next thing you're going to buy is, you're going to buy that iMac Mini with an M4 chip in it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, right?
I think you're right. Yeah, yeah, that would be a no-brainer, right? And it would be. We're coming up. I think we're coming up on 3 years on the Mac. Am I in my second year? I think I am.
Mm.
Do you think that'll come out next
I,
spring, next
I
fall?
I think it'll be sometime in 2025. You'll see that. And
Okay.
listen, I find Apple's not terrible with their trade-in stuff
Right.
either.
Right. Yeah.
Usually, I'm pleasantly surprised at what their offer turns out to be. They're not going overboard, but it's always
Right.
seems reasonable.
Yeah. And you know me, I don't like to sell stuff. So if they just take it on trade, that's
And
the way I
they
like
send
it.
you the perfect packaging to send
Right.
it back to them. They make
Yeah.
it easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony brings up a good point, and they talked about this recently. You got to upgrade if you want the Apple Intelligence. That's the AI stuff. That's
AI, Apple Intelligence. That's what it stands for,
those dirty rascals. Yeah, they. Well, we'll see. We'll listen. Microsoft just released a whole bunch of new hardware that's got a neural processor in it. That's what they're calling it.
Mm.
It's really it's a fancy video card, is what it is. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I'll hold off on any iPhone upgrades till I see how that shakes out.
Yeah, we're both on 12, right? Didn't we
Yeah.
talk about that? We're both on 12. I think
Yeah,
so
I'm
too.
not seeing quite the battery life that I used to, but that's okay.
I have no problems. Now, I plug it in, I plug it into the car to get Apple CarPlay
Right.
when I drive in, and I'm driving in every day. So it's charging just fine. during and I get home and I'm still not having any battery trouble with this thing. It lasts all day. I probably have 50% right now, and I've been home all day. I didn't even go anywhere.
Yeah, and I tend to overreact, right? If I see any number less than 50%, it kind of freaks me out.
Okay.
But
Well, that could be the case. Yeah.
well, I just threw one of those Anchor power packs in my pocket, and that's the one that attaches with MagSafe to the back of the phone, which gives you over one more charge, almost two, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on a long day, I just pop that on, and it's all good again.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes this would scare you to death. Sometimes when I go to bed and the last thing I'm checking it or I'm doing whatever, setting the alarm, it says 20%.
Oh no.
And I get that. Do you want to go to low power mode? And I'm going to bed. And I'm like, no, I'm going to bed. I'm going to plug this thing in a minute. It's going to be
a lot
fun.
of battery anxiety. I took the Tesla up to Canada.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought it went great. Although, what it'll do is their nav is actually very good in that I'll put in my destination in Canada and it tells me which superchargers to stop at and how many minutes to charge there.
Wow.
Yeah, my problem is I won't believe them. They say, charge for 16 minutes, and then you can go. And I'll say, well, no, because you could be lying to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to charge for 25 minutes, and that's all there is to it. But, I think to go that distance, 400 miles, they recommended 2 stops, and the first one was for 14 minutes, according to them, and it probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
And the second one was 16 minutes. And honestly, for 400 miles, I'm stopping twice anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So by the time you use the facilities and grab a cup of coffee, it's done. So
yeah.
It's not, for me, it's not a big impact thing.
Did you find any trouble, like when you got there, like chargers aren't available or you have to wait for them? Or
no, and it's sort of interesting. They'll show you on the UI in the car how many are currently available, and also how many are navigating to the chargers at that point in time. So you'll see, there's only 2 people navigating. There's 6 slots open. I should be good.
Wow.
Yeah,
that would give me anxiety. Then I would be like
if
racing.
you saw a bunch of people navigating.
yeah. And then I wouldn't make that sound because it's an electric car.
when you don't know how their algorithms work,
right?
Are they saying that I should charge for 14 minutes if I'm traveling at the speed limit?
Right.
Because it's a very different matter driving at 75 miles an hour versus 55. Your efficiency is nowhere close.
Right.
So I'm not sure how they're coming up with their numbers, and I don't trust them.
But if it's a difference between 17 and 25, or even 17 and 27, like
wouldn't you take the little bit extra?
Just go top it off, walk around a little bit, do some push-ups, something.
Yeah, I like to. If I'm going to stop at a supercharger, I like to charge to 80%.
Okay.
And after 80%, the rate of charge is going to slow down.
Right.
Same as watching a phone, right? Oh my God, I already got 80% back, and then to get to 90 takes that long again.
Right.
So,
when you got to Quebec, did you have any trouble finding chargers up there? Or was that a pretty easy thing to do? How's Canada doing on this stuff?
Canada's doing okay. In fact, what I did is I actually made a third not recommended stop to put it back to 80%. We weren't really driving around because we were right in the city, but I wanted to just go when it was time to leave rather than, go start charging and then you can leave.
Right.
So, I'd say in Quebec City there were probably 4 within 10 miles of where I was staying. So certainly no lack of chargers in Canada.
Okay.
Jim, when I'm out here at night, a lot of the bugs kind of crawl on my screen and stuff.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah,
They're getting through the screen. They're getting through the screen. For those who don't know, Ed is on his patio. You had a nice view to start with. It almost looks like black curtains now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, sometimes my dog Milo leaves the door open. And yeah, he's crashed out in the corner for this whole podcast. He has zero interest.
He's not interested in iPad Pros, or
he's not interested in the debate. He's just not interested, Jim.
Well, we'll wrap it on this, Ed. I found this the other day, and I think you might want to pick one. Since you had what you were going to tell me what I need to get, I am now going to tell you, and you need your own personal charger, but it's a generator. So the front end is for the for the car, but if you can always just fire up the generator on the backside. Doesn't seem to make sense. We're trying to get away from the fossil fuel thing with this, but okay. I just thought this was pretty hilarious that they make these portable chargers. If you don't have electricity where you're at, this will charge your car for you.
Yeah. See, well, I don't actually need it. I have almost that set up now, Jim. I do have a whole house generator.
Yeah.
And a level 2 charger at home. So I can charge my car when we have no power.
I was going to say the generator was put in before the car, but it's sized. It's still appropriate. It could charge the car, or would it slow charge it?
I've had no issue with it, but that is a 50 amp circuit going to the level 2 charger. So if I wanted to be safe, I would probably take the car down from its normal 40 amps and maybe have it just pull 20 amps for charging.
Okay.
But I have had it plugged in when we lost power and didn't see any issues from it.
Okay. Yeah. Are you electric heat or are you gas heat? You're
gas heat.
Gas heat. So you don't. In the winter, you want air conditioning. In the summer, maybe. Although we just put in this new air conditioner, the Sear 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Thing.
Well, the efficiency's improved so much.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Actually, I got my first bill from like my first real cooling bill, and it was 2/3 of what that was last year during the same time period with the old unit.
The efficiency's come a long way with those. I mean, you're an old guy, you remember the bigger window units all used to have to be 240 volts. Now the same cooling capacity they can do on 110.
Well, I got one in the smoke shack that I use it's on a little cord. It's I'm running an extension cord, for God's sakes, out to run it, and they're pretty efficient. Tony says he goes, I only go 50% using 24 amps on a 60 amp circuit at home. I use so little day to day, so I mean,
that's the thing. A lot of the people that are most dissatisfied with having an EV don't have home charging. Well, you shouldn't get one then.
Right. Yeah.
is the easy answer. I mean, for me, that's one of the best parts of it. Just plug it in when I get home. It's full the next day. Haven't been to a gas station in years.
Yeah. Yeah. Not missing anything, by the way. You're not missing anything.
I make a trip once a year for snowblower gas, but if the snowblower dies, I may go electric on that too.
Huh? They're getting better. I don't know if I did mower. I did the early versions of the mower. The mowers are getting better. I might go.
Snowblowing's harder. I mean,
it is.
The Aaron's professional snowblower I have is a beast. They're not making an electric one that'll throw snow like that.
Not like that. No, and I have the zoysia grass out front, which is super thick and lush, and in the summer when I was cutting it, if I let it get a little too long, I'd have to take that thing back in for like, I'd get 3/4 of it done, and then that blade would just go and stop, and you're like, well, okay, now they are making them now with swappable batteries, and you can have a couple of them. But again, you're in a couple $1,000 at that point.
Well,
those batteries aren't cheap.
Listen, this winter, I think I only had the snowblower out twice.
For sure.
Didn't have much snow. And
yeah, thanks.
Those times it was mostly because it was some snow and then rain, so it was kind of heavy slush that I didn't want to push around with a shovel.
Yeah. I have a 15 or maybe 20-year-old snowblower now.
Yeah,
still works just fine.
Going.
I need to replace the auger. It has some replaceable blades. That's not. It's just some covers. They're like, there's some kind of material, and I need to replace those. But I'm like you. I'm kind of thinking like, well, I pulled it out all of 2 times last year. Now we've just both jinxed it. So now we're gonna get 1,000 inches of snow this next winter.
And I looked at the oil and said, well, why would I waste it? It's synthetic oil.
Right. Yeah.
Barely used. All right.
5 hours.
Let it roll.
Yeah, you have 5 or 10 hours on it. It's right on. I think actually when next time I replace my generator oil, I will probably put a synthetic in there just for that purpose. Is you're kind of like, well, I only run that thing. As soon as I bought the home generator, we haven't lost power. Not once. It's
good insurance.
Maybe once. Yeah, it just keeps you from losing power is what it's. $800 wasn't a bad deal that was during the early days of the pandemic, and I thought the world was going to end.
Right.
So, you never know.
I put mine in years ago and just finally felt like it was worth it this year because we lost power for over 48 hours.
Oh, yeah. It
felt worth it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I start losing my mind after 24 because I'm thinking, all this food, I got to take it somewhere, and not anymore. It's kind of nice. Well, Ed, thanks for that update. I will not buy the iPad Pro, is what you're telling me? No.
I don't think much of anybody should, Jim.
Okay. All right.
Well, there's a lot of talk about the new Pencil Pro and how much better it is. So if you really have an app where the pencil makes sense, but I don't know. Some people are, doing handwritten notes on it. Not for me. I don't draw a picture. I thought of getting a pencil. What was I going to do? Make one doodle and say, wow. And that would be it.
Yeah. I had the pencil for my Surface for a while. I have no idea where it went. It would magnetize to it. I have not. Somebody was like, yeah, but with the new AI, you can start writing and then it follows up behind you and it corrects it and puts it in a readable cursive. And I was like, I can't remember the last time I wanted to write on something,
Well, I saw somebody complaining because Apple hadn't integrated Find My in the pencil, and I think they were sick of buying $150 pencils that they misplaced.
Yeah, I think the pencil is still sitting in that top drawer right there. And
you know exactly where it is.
I know where it's at. I just can't remember the last time I'm like, I want to use a pencil on a computer. That makes a lot. Listen, for artists and some of those kinds of things, it makes total sense. I get it.
Yeah, and the new one is squeezable.
So what does that mean?
I think if you squeeze it, it can, depending on the app, bring up different menu choices.
Oh, okay. It's got buttons.
And it's got some rotational to it as well, so that by turning it, it changes the way the pencil. So if you're drawing with it, you could probably do some cool things. But I can't draw.
If you get lost, can people find you?
No, you can't find with a pencil, Jim. I told you that.
Oh, I'm talking about you having the pencil. Well, I guess that makes sense, anyways. Well, Ed, thanks for coming on. How's the candle? How did the scented candle hold out?
It did well. They last a long time when you're talking a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't get, but listen, this is a winner for Rainier Lorenzo over at HVC.
Okay.
He was at the event tonight. Very nice gentleman.
Okay. HVC, good cigars.
Yeah.
I enjoy them. Hot cakes, enjoy those. And some good stuff. You know what's weird? Right here at the end of the show, your video has cleared up.
It'll be perfect. I think probably it had something to do with that debate.
Oh.
Yeah, they were using up all the bandwidths or something.
Huh. That would be weird. Well, we'll have to see how the recording goes. Very, very possible maybe on your end. I should have enabled local recording for this, and then
I mean, wouldn't you know it? Our Sundays are perfect.
I know.
We don't have a single issue.
We're sharing screens. We're playing YouTube videos to each other. We're doing all this high intensity. I'm out in the shed, so I'm farther away. You're there. We don't have any. Is the debate over? I imagine by now it is. So maybe it was the debate. That's weird.
I wonder who won this. Are there any winners? I don't know.
I think we're only losers. All right, well,
that's as political as you want to go.
That's definitely as political as I want to go. Well, can you hang tight for 1 second?
Sure thing.
All right. Couple reminders on the way out. One, if you want to catch the show notes for this, and there'll be all the links that Ed talked about in the show notes, theaverageguy.tv/HGG613 is this episode. Big thanks to Christian over there at Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. About time to get him back on the podcast anyway, and kind of catch up with him. Check him out today, maplegrovepartners.com. You can leave us a message for the show, homegadgetgeeks.com. That's actually kind of a really cool site. That's a pod page site that you can go to. Pod page, is that right? Yeah, Dave says that all. It is pod page, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Is it pod
yes,
page?
You did.
Okay, good.
It's pod page.
Okay, all of a sudden it didn't sound right.
It's Gage over at pod page, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. And you can check that out, homegadgetgeeks.com. If you want to join the Discord group, join us over there, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Next week, it's the 4th of July. We're going to celebrate us throwing off the ruthless shackles from our friends across the pond. On July 4th, we'll burn. I wonder, have you ever looked up, hey, Ed, this is a thing we would do on Sunday.
All right.
Hey, Ed, how much do you think the United States spends in fireworks each 4th of July as we celebrate independence? What is it? You are crystal clear. Like you are crystal. Maybe we should do the whole podcast over again.
$2.3 billion in consumer fireworks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Consumer. So that rules out all the professional displays, right?
Yeah, that was in 2022. So that's across the year, but you got to imagine the bulk of it is at the 4th of July.
Yeah. $2.3 billion every year. Brian says coffee greater than tea, USA, 4th of July. Good stuff. We'll be back next week's 4th of July. That's where I was going. No show next week. We'll be enjoying that holiday off. And then the week after, Jay Madison's coming back, and we'll spend some time. We got some updates. I think it's been 2 years since I've had him on, so we'll have some updates from him as well. And then I got some new folks to schedule. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Not every, but most. Here at theaverageguy.tv/live, and love to have you a part of the show. If you're listening to the recorded version of this, come out some Thursday night. I know, you got things to do, but so do I. Get out here and watch us sometime. We have a good time. Ed's video eventually straightened out, and you can too. We'd love to have you in the chat room. So come out and join us. For everybody listening live, we'll just do a short post show. With that, we'll say goodbye.